I don't give two hoots in hell. I'm bagging their hands. I'm going to bag their hands just in case there is anything there. Because you can't just merely assume. You talked about just a moment ago, what if we didn't have CCTV? What if it was just done? I don't know what anybody saw. I don't know I wasn't there. So I'm going to bag the hands so that I can do any kind of sampling. And it is soft tissue. So if you'd had a midline impact, say where you're going through the trachea, for instance, where it enters right here, and you've got this cartilaginous body in here, that would slow it a bit more, I think. All right. Okay. It would diminish some of the velocity. Right?
And what do you mean by that? Because it's a firmer structure.
Yeah, it's a firmer structure.
It can begin to distribute all that force.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But you're still going to have, in my opinion, this kinetic reaction, right, to the soft tissue where you'll see this kind of travel out. Now, of course, we haven't seen all the video, I don't think. I've got that one view where he struck, and I can't really make out a tremendous amount of detail relative to that as to how the skin reacts, however, or the tissue. I see the shirt, and I see the shirt billow. And for me, automatically, everything that we learn in ballistics and terminal ballistics, you're going to have this kinetic delivery. And so when you see this kind of billow like this, as we kind of see like this, for me, immediately when I saw that, I knew that was the delivery of that energy from that round into the neck. And then, of course, there's been, and one of my big questions is, and I don't know if we talked about this, and one of the things that's troubling to me about this case is I want to know where the shirt is. I've got to know where that shirt is.
What would the shirt tell you?
Oh, it's going to tell me a lot. It's going to tell me a lot. And this is why. If we have the shirt, any other kind of speculative things that are out there, any kind of other terminal instrument that may have been used, because it's, guys, I got to tell you, forensics is not just merely confirmatory in the sense of finding a positive finding. Forensics is also about negative findings as well. Is there an absence of something? So let's just say, for the sake of saying, that we've got an explosive device, okay? Well, the explosive device that might be utilized in an event like this, that the propellant that you would see, say, for instance, with a 30-06 round that's contained in the casing that drives that round downrange, it's not going to be the same as, say, something that you use as some kind of shaped charge on a mic or something like that. So what we would do with the shirt, and I hope that they saved it. I truly do. I don't know because I've seen, guys, I can't tell you how many times I've seen things thrown into garbage cans, shirts that are cut up the middle when they're doing heroic measures, things being ripped off, and then you don't get the shirt or any other item of clothing, and you're looking for particulate matter that might go back to something. Okay.
Is it more common to keep the clothing?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
50%, 80%, 100%?
Yeah. Most, to the point, like, and I'm just kind of, I don't want to go too far off in the, weeds with this.
We can go off in the weeds.
No. What I'm saying is that we have tried to make a real effort with emergency room staff now in the days, and this is why, because if a person rolls in and they're being treated, right, many times, nurses always have scissors, so they'll take their scissors off, and cut it, and the next thing you know, the custodian is gathering up all of the, the red bags with the bloody trash in it, and they're putting it in the dumpster. I've done dumpster dives behind Grady Hospital in Atlanta, behind Charity Hospital in New Orleans, looking for one single item like that because it's a key. And I hope that they secured every stitch of clothing he had because, again, going back to the point, it's as important to rule things out as it is to rule things in because you're trying to stay in the middle with the science itself.
So 2 things on that. One, is there a procedure? Is that like a standard procedure, save all the clothes?
Yeah. And
I mean, is that well known across the board?
Absolutely.
Timpanogos Hospital would have known.
Absolutely.
Yeah, not state to state. It's the same across the board.
Yeah, well, and I can't speak to necessarily what their procedures would have been at this facility, but they have enough trauma cases, I would imagine, that have come in over the years. There should have been a police officer that was there, that was being directed by a detective or the investigators. It could be a state ME investigator that was stationed in that area. I don't know how they're distributed around the state. You know, somebody like in my former position, I'm going to track down the charge nurse that's running that code. I'm going to talk to the emergency room physician. Where are his clothes? Where are his clothes? And even in a case like this where I've got an individual that, you know, first sight, you're seeing them shot from a distance. I don't give two hoots in hell. I'm bagging their hands. I'm going to bag their hands just in case there is anything there. You know, because you can't just merely assume. You talked about just a moment ago, what if we didn't have CCTV? What if it was just done? I don't know what anybody saw. I don't know what, I wasn't there. So I'm going to bag the hands so that I can do any kind of sampling at the emergency, well, not at the emergency room, but back at the ME's office, where I can collect anything, any kind of GSR that might be on the hands, rule it in, rule it out. I don't know. You know, I have no idea. I wasn't there. That should have been collected. The shirt in particular should have been collected, tested. I want to look at the collar. Any, you know, people have talked about microphones and all these sorts of things. Wherever a mic is positioned,
it was right.
Yeah,
right.
I want to know. I want to know.
Right clavicle.
What is going on with that particular area? Because if anything, and I mean anything, initiated right there, you're going to have residue.
So, second thing on the shirt, you said it's pretty standard across the board.
It is.
They know.
Yeah.
So, what likelihood is it? In other words, in your experience, how often do you see the shirts not kept?
More so now than in the past.
You see them not kept more now?
No, I see them more kept now than in the past, where you would just, you know, because some people that are just working, you know, you got to, you know, the medical staff that's there, they're going on to the next case. And I know we're talking about Charlie here, but there's other people coming in to be treated, right? And so they're going from case to case, and it all depends on what the caseload is like that particular day. That's why it's so important that you want to have law enforcement representatives that are there, that are tuned in, because once they have called the code, once they have said this is done and pronounced death, and pronouncement of death is different than time of death, all right, just so you guys understand.
Can you explain that?
Yeah, pronouncement of death is a legalese term. That's the official time. You know, I declare you dead. Time of death is a scientific finding. That's why we do rigor mortis and livor mortis and algor mortis and stomach contents and all that stuff. So they're two different things, and people conflate those things all the time. Anyway, so once he has been declared dead, we know that this is a homicide, or we suspect that it's a homicide. That body is now your central piece of evidence, and it should be protected at all costs.
Including all the things that came in on it.
Everything.
And so maybe final question on the shirt.
Yeah.
Can you quantify it in a percentage basis of how often the shirt is preserved or not preserved?
I could.
Like, how unusual is it that the shirt
I'll
would be
put it to you
tossed?
this way. I think in my own perception, when I first started in the field back when dinosaurs roamed the earth, I would say
you're only 87.
only 87.
I mean, you look great.
Still dragging my stumps across the ground.
That's right.
So I would say probably back in the day, it may have been a 50-50 proposition as to whether you're not going to get it. I'd say that number has probably come up, hopefully, to just above 80% now. And some people look at it that are civilians that don't do, you know, forensics, that are working as someone in an emergency room. They might not necessarily see the value in it. We see the value. We try to see the value in everything that comes in with a body. Everything has a purpose. Everything has, value to it for us, because we have to have as much sample as we can to test it.
How would it, now, Baron? You said that the injury map was all the way from down here.
It was from the top of his heart to the top of his head.
And what? Yeah, what'd you say was on his head?
In the parietal lobe, I'm way outside of my depth here, but there was some sort of damage above that. between his skull and that region of his brain.
Okay. So we'll come back to that because that's important.
Yeah, sure.
But staying with the shirt for a second. So, i.e., the shirt is the most critical piece of clothing just based on where the injuries all occurred.
For me, it would be, and again, going to this idea of exclusion, one of the questions is that will be asked and has to be answered in court when that forensic pathologist gets up on the stand, which they will. They're going to look at that autopsy report, and if the state, this is not Morgan saying that, if the state is saying that this is in fact a gunfire-related death, all right, the attorney is going to ask a question that is similar to this.
Thank you guys for watching the episode. If you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button and smash that like button on the video. They're both a huge, huge help. And if you would like to follow me on Instagram and X, those links are in my description below.